Okay, so we are going to practice telling time today with a number line. So that's the lesson that we're going to be working with today. So right here it says Christine has 12 math problems for homework. It takes her 5 minutes to complete each problem. How many minutes does it take Christine to finish all 12 problems? So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of draw a tape diagram. We're not necessarily going to label the tape diagram. It's just sometimes easier to get it drawn in a big rectangle and make it look nice and neat. So what I want you to do is I want you to draw a long rectangle on your piece of paper just like we would when we were drawing a tape diagram. And then we're going to have to get so many sections into our tape diagram. So if she has 12 different problems that she's solving, then we know that our tape diagram is going to have 12 different sections. So you're just going to make 12 different sections in your tape diagram. So you're going to be pretty much drawing 11 lines because that will get us 12 different sections. So once you have 12 different sections drawn on your tape diagram, we'll be ready to put a number in each section to represent the minutes that it's taking her to complete all the problems. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So mine, I just have 11. So I'm going to draw one extra box on mine to make 12. Okay, so now I've got 12 sections on my tape diagram to represent the 12 problems that she has for homework. So if it's taking her 5 minutes to complete each problem, then in your tape diagram you're just going to be putting 5 into each section. So go ahead and put that on your paper. And we're trying to figure out how many minutes did it take her to complete all of these problems that she had for homework if each one took her 5 minutes. Okay, so this one's not too difficult because since we have 5s here, we can just skip count by 5s. And an easier way to do it is you should know what 10 times 5 is. So you could start skip counting by 5s after the 10th box because we know that 10 times 5 is 50. So right here would be 50. So we could say 55, 60. So by looking at this, we know that it's taking her 60 minutes to complete 12 problems. And hopefully you know that 60 minutes is also the same thing as 1 hour. So another thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this tape diagram and we're going to turn it into a number line because that's another way to help us tell time. So right underneath your tape diagram, you're going to, well, not directly underneath it, but see how I've left some space in between mine. You're going to take a line and you're going to draw it right underneath your tape diagram. Now, if your tape diagram is another way or you don't have enough room to draw a line, then just find a spot on your paper where you can draw a number line because that's what we're going to use to help practice tell time today. Okay, so now we are just going to make tick marks where each unit, so each part on this tape diagram is divided. So we're going to take our pencil, I'm going to take mine, and right underneath here I'm just going to start making tick marks. So in between each 5 minutes I'm going to make tick marks. So you can kind of think of this like a clock because every 5 minutes you do have a tick mark, and then there are other tick marks in between every 5 minutes to stand for just the minute marks as well. So if I were to take this number line and make it into a circle, it would be very similar to a clock. Whereas if I were going to take the circle on the clock and make that into a straight line, it would look like a number line as well. So this is just like a clock, it's just not round and it's just flat and straight. Okay, so now we're going to skip count by 5s underneath our number line to just show like what a clock would show. So you're going to start with 0 on that first tick mark, and then you're going to skip count by 5s with each tick mark until you get to 60 because we know that in 1 hour we've got 60 minutes. So go ahead and skip count by 5s on your number line there, and once you have all those numbers written down, you can push play so we can move on. Okay, so up here it says the space between two marks represents one 5-minute interval. So in between here and in between here is 5 minutes, and in between here and in between here is 5 minutes. So just like a clock, skip counting by fives each time you go to a new tick mark. So the first few questions say, how many minutes are in the interval from 0 to 10? So we know if we were going to start at 0 and we were going to skip count to 10, that would give us 10 minutes. And then it says from 0 to 60, since we're starting at 0 and going all the way to 60, we know that that's going to be 60 minutes. But this next one right here is a little bit different. You're starting at 15 and you're going to 30. So how many minutes does it take you to get from 15 to 30 minutes? So whenever you skip count by fives, I'm going to draw it like this. We know that we've got 5, whoopsie, and then we've got, whoopsie, keep doing it wrong. Then we've got 10, and then we've got 15. So when we're skip counting from fives from 15 to 30, that took us 15 minutes. So now, going back to our same question about Christine, let's use our number line to find how many minutes it takes Christine to do 4 math problems. So if you remember from the problem originally, it took her 5 minutes to complete 1 problem. So now we have to figure out how many minutes is it going to take her to complete 4 problems. So let's start at the 0 because that's going to be her with her first problem. So if it takes her 5 minutes to complete 1 problem, then we know that we're going to go directly to the 5. And this thing is hard to do, so let me redraw that. Okay, so this is going to represent 1 problem, and then this is going to represent 2 problems. And then we've got 3 problems, and then we've got 4 problems. So the amount of time it takes her to complete 4 math problems is 20 minutes, because all you had to do was count 4 different times on our tick marks. Okay, so next question or questions is, how long does it take Christine to solve 7 problems? So when we're starting here and we're going to count 7 different times, and whatever minute we land on, that's going to tell us how long it took her to complete 7 problems. So on your piece of paper, I want you to write down how many minutes did it take Christine to solve 7 problems. Whenever you have that on your paper, you can push play to check it. So if you started counting, we're not going to count at the first tick mark because that's 0. So we have to start counting for her first problem that was completed, and that was at the 5 minutes. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it took her 35 minutes to complete 7 problems. So now we're going to do the same thing for 9 problems and 11 problems. So find out how long it took her to complete 9 problems and write that down on your piece of paper, and then find out how long it took her to complete 11 problems and write that down on your piece of paper as well. Whenever you have those down, you can push play to check your answers. So we know that at 35 minutes, that was 7 problems, so I can start counting from here, and I know that this next one's going to be 8, and then this next one's going to be 9, so I know that it took her 45 minutes to complete 9 problems. And if at 45 minutes was 9 problems, then I'm going to start there again and count until I have 11. So the next one would be 10 problems, and this next one would be 11 problems. So it took her 55 minutes to complete 11 problems. So this is pretty simple so far because we're just skip counting by fives. Now we're ready to move on to the next problem. Okay, on your piece of paper, I want you to make a new number line, just like the one that we did before. This is just like a clock, but it's in a straight line. So I want you to make a number line like I have on my screen, and then we're going to start labeling some times on our number line. So go ahead and get your new number line drawn, just like this one, with all the minutes on there as well. And once you have that drawn, you can push play so we can start plotting some times on our line. Okay, so how many minutes are labeled on our number line? And we know that we've got 60 minutes because that's how many minutes is in an hour. Now it says there are 60 minutes between 1 and 2 p.m. So it takes 1 hour to get from 1 to 2 p.m. and we know that 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. So now we're going to use the number line to model exactly what we do or what this person does during the activities on their schedule between 1 and 2. So this isn't necessarily our schedule at school, it's whoever made this lesson, it's their schedule. So between or below the 0 on your number line, we're going to write 1 p.m. because that's what time we're working with right now, and that's the starting time. And the ending time is going to be 2 p.m. So over here below your 60, you're going to write 2 p.m. because that's the next hour, and we know that whenever we get to 60 minutes, that is the next hour, because we don't ever say like 12:60. We would never say that as a time because we know when we get to the 60 minutes that that's the next hour. So make sure you have your 1 p.m. below your 0 and your 2 p.m. below your 60 on your number line on your piece of paper. And now we're going to start plotting some times. So right here it says we start recess, it's not really us, it's whoever made this, at 1:10 p.m. So is that between 1 and 2? And I'm hoping that you do know that yes, 1:10 is between 1 and 2 because it's 1 something. So up here on your number line, I want you to make a point right at the 10. And I'm going to have to move mine a little bit. So you're going to make a point, you're going to color that in so we have a point. And then up above that, I want you to put the letter R because that stands for recess. So we know that it's 1:10 p.m. because we know that it's 1 o'clock because that's what it says right there at 0, and that's what time recess is. So the next thing, it says at 1:35 we'll start science. So now we have to go plot a point at 1:35. So we're going to take a point and we're going to put it right at 35, and that shows us that it's 1:35. And then up above that, you're going to put S to stand for science. And now on your number line, it says at 2 o'clock, they'll clean up. So we're going to put a point right on the 60 because that's where 2 o'clock is. And then we're going to put a C for that because that is going to stand for cleanup. So now we've plotted all the points on the number line. Oh, goodness. Okay, so we've got 1:10 is recess, 1:35 is science, and then right at 2 o'clock is cleanup time. Okay, now we're ready for the problem set. It's going to be pretty much what we just did during the concept development, looking at a number line and finding different times on a number line. So if you want to get out your problem set and have that ready in front of you. Okay, so the number 1 says follow the directions to label the number line below. So our number line's blank, so it's kind of like what we just worked with. A says Ingrid gets ready for school between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. Label the first and last tick marks as 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. So what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to do it above it because we still haven't skip counted all the minutes yet. So we know that this is going to be 7 a.m. and I'm going to have to make mine smaller. So right above the first tick mark, we're going to put 7 a.m. And then on the last tick mark, we're going to put that it is 8 a.m. because that is the time that we're working with for this. Okay, so we did A, so we're good for A. Part B says each interval represents 5 minutes. Count by 5 starting at 0 or at 7 a.m., which is what that 0 would be, and then label each 5-minute interval below the number line up until you get to 8 a.m. So this is just what we did in the concept development. We know we're going to have 0. I'm going to have to make mine a little bit smaller here. It's not making it smaller. Hold on. Okay, so I've got 0, 5, 10, 15, well, I'm getting off. Okay, I'm just going to have to space. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and then I've got 55, and I've got 60. So as long as you're labeling the minutes underneath each tick mark, that way we know that each tick mark represents that particular minute. All of mine are off, so just make sure your numbers are exactly where they need to be, because they can get off easily. Okay, hold on. Mine keep getting off. I'm trying to fix them. And I'm going to have to make these go back one more time. Whoopsie. Okay, that's about as good. Whoopsie. That's about as good as it's going to get. Okay, so now we are done with part B. C says Ingrid starts getting dressed at 7:10 a.m. Plot a point on the number line to represent this time, and above the point write D, because that's going to stand for getting dressed. So we know that this starts at 7, so if we just go to the 10 mark, we know that's going to represent 7:10. So draw you a point right at 7:10, and then up above that you're going to put D to represent her getting dressed. And then part D says Ingrid starts eating breakfast at 7:35. So now we're going to make a point, or plot a point at 7:35. And then it says above that write E, because that's what time she eats breakfast. And then what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and go and do E and F and G and plot the points for T, L, and W. And once you have those plots pointed at the right time on your number line, you can push play to check all of your answers to see if you have your points in the right spot. So go ahead and do the rest of the problems right here on the first page. And once you have those done, you can push play to check them. Okay, so you should have plotted a point right at 40 to represent her brushing her teeth. At 7:45, she's packing her lunch, and then at 7:55, she's waiting on the bus. Okay, so now we're ready for the next page of the problem set. Okay, this right here, number 2, it starts with label every 5 minutes below the number line shown. Draw a line from each clock to the point on the number line which shows its time. Not all of the clocks have matching points. That's why it's very important to read directions closely. So, all of these clocks you're not going to be drawing a line to. Some of them may not have a line to draw on this number line. So that's why we have to look at the clocks very closely, so that way we know what time they are showing. These are digital clocks, so we already can see the time on those. So we will have to take a look at the actual clocks to see what time they are showing. So the first thing that we need to do is label every 5 minutes. So you can see right here that they already did the first one for us. That's 0. We're going to go and start labeling all the other times on our number line by skip counting by 5. So I want you to go ahead and get all of your skip counting by 5s done on your number line, and once you have that done, then we'll get ready to take a look at the clocks and see what time they show. So go ahead and push pause and get all your skip counting done, and push play whenever you're ready to move on. Okay, so we see that this first clock, and we can just start with the digital clocks, says 8:35. But when we're looking down here, it starts at 5 p.m. and it ends at 6 p.m. So you have to ask yourself, is there going to be a line that we can draw from that clock if it's showing 8:35 and our line is from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.? So hopefully your answer is no, because this is just going from 5 to 6, so we're not going to be able to draw a line from 8:35 to anywhere. So the next digital clock says 5:15, so we know if we're starting at 5, then we're definitely going to have a 5:15 on here. So from your digital clock, you can draw a line from your 5:15 to the 15 mark right here, because that's going to stand for 5:15. And then the last digital clock says 5:40, so we can definitely draw a line from 5:40 because it's not yet 6 o'clock. So we can draw a line to the 40 mark. Okay, so now we need to take a look at the clocks that are not digital so we can figure out what time they're showing. So underneath each clock here, I want you to write down what these clocks are showing, what time these clocks are showing. And so once you have these 3 times written underneath these 3 clocks, you can push play to see if you have the right time written underneath them. Okay, so for this first clock, the hour hand was in between the 5 and the 6, so it's 5 something. It was right on the 10 for the minute hand, so if you skip count it all the way to the 10, that is 50, so this clock shows 5:50. This clock is a little bit past the 6, or kind of right there on the 6, and the minute hand is on the 2, so you had to skip count by 5s until you get to 2. So this clock shows 6:10, and then the last clock, the hour hand is in between the 5 and the 6, so it's 5, and the minute hand is right on the 5, so if you skip counted by 5s until you get to the 5, you counted to 25, so this clock shows 5:25. So now we're ready to draw lines from these clocks to the right place on the number line. So this one says 5:50, so all we have to do is draw a line from this one to the 50 mark. This one says 6:10, but if you notice, our number line stops at 6 and it doesn't keep going past 6. So we can't take our line and draw it to the 10 right here because that would represent 5:10 and not 6:10. So this one right here, we are not drawing a line from this clock either because this number line does not show 6:10 because we stop at 6. And then the last one is 5:25, so we just need to take our line and draw it to the 25. Okay, so now we're ready for number 3. Number 3 says, Noah uses a number line to locate 5:45 p.m. Each interval is 5 minutes, so just like what we've been doing on our number line so far. The number line shows the hour from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., so you have to label the number line below to show his work. So what you're going to do here is you're going to label the number line, you're going to skip count by 5, starting at 0 all the way to 60. We know that we're starting at 5 p.m. and we're ending at 6 p.m. And he used a number line to locate 5:45 p.m. So I'm sure he put a point right where 5:45 is supposed to be. So I feel comfortable that you will be able to do this number line on your own right now since we did it all in the concept development and we just did it right here and on the front page. So I want you to go ahead and do number 3 and push play whenever you're ready to check it. Okay, so this is what your number line should look like. You skip counting from 0 all the way to 60 by 5s. You should have had up here at the top that it was at 5 p.m. or if you put 5 p.m. at the bottom below the 0, I'm okay with that too. And then it ended at 6 p.m. and then you should have put a point right at the 45 to stand for 5:45. Okay, so now we're ready for number 4. It says, Tanner tells his little brother that 11:25 p.m. comes after 11:20 a.m. Do you agree with Tanner? Why or why not? Okay, so this one right here you've got to really think about because it's one of them is saying p.m. and one of them is saying a.m. Okay, so a.m. is usually in the mornings and p.m. is usually at night. The only time that that's different is that right whenever it hits midnight, that's 12 a.m. So then you start your 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and it's still dark out time at that time, so I don't want you to think that that's still a p.m. time because right whenever you hit midnight, it starts at 12 a.m. So 11 a.m. is still in the morning times. It's like usually right before we go to lunch, since we go to lunch around 11 something. So 11 a.m. is going to be right around in the morning time, right before lunchtime. 11:25 p.m. is really late at night and it's almost to the 12 a.m., which is midnight. So when you take a look at what he's saying, it says Tanner tells his little brother that 11:25 comes after 11:20 a.m. So do we agree with Tanner or do we not agree with Tanner? So if we're thinking if 11:20 happens in the morning and 11:25 happens at night, then whether you're looking at it one way or the other, then we can say that yes, 11:20 does come after 11:25. So on your paper, we can just put yes, we agree with Tanner, and I'm not too worried about you putting the why or why not. So we are going to now go ahead and move to the exit ticket. Once you have all of the exit ticket completed, then you can bring that to me so we can check it.